What's up guys, and welcome to a mid-engine naturally aspirated V8 supercar comparison. We're currently sitting in a 2023 Chevrolet Corvette C8 generation Z06 with the Z07 performance package, and we'll be comparing this against the car that Chevy actually benchmarked when they were developing this Z06, the Ferrari 458 Italia. I've driven both of these examples before in other videos, so let's get right into it. The market value of both these cars, well, the 458, depending on mileage and condition, you're looking at anywhere from $160,000 to $200,000. The one we're about to drive has over 40,000 miles, so probably on the lower end of that scale, but that still puts it right in line with a brand new, nearly fully loaded Z06 with the Z07 package. The MSRP of this one, the owner Jackson mentioned, was over $180,000. But let's get into the specs. This car is powered by a 5.5 liter naturally aspirated flat plane crank V8, revs to 8,600 RPM, makes 670 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque. It weighs a little over 3,600 pounds. We have electric power steering, an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission, 4th generation Magnaride dampers, which have been retuned for the Z06 with Z07 package. And versus a base C8 Stingray, this gets stiffer control arm bushings. We've got double wishbone suspension front and rear, an electronically controlled limited slip differential as standard, and the Z07 package, which costs around $9,000, gives us stiffer springs, Cup 2R tires, Brembo carbon ceramic brakes, and it requires you to add the Aero package, which gives us a carbon wing, splitter, canards, and you can add another $8,000 to $10,000 if you want exposed carbon fiber, which this car has. Now, the carbon fiber wheels on this car were removed by the owner. Instead, he fitted some 19-inch Apex VS5 RS wheels versus the stock 20 and 21-inch staggered carbon wheels. So with that, let's drive the Z06 and then jump into the car that Chevy benchmarked to see who did it better. Interior is very busy, lots of tech in the C8 generation. Of course, we have this giant row of buttons down here. I do appreciate that it's dedicated buttons for everything, at least. The square steering wheel has never been something that I love, but we're gonna put it into Z mode. You can hear the exhaust valve open up right away. We have adjustable steering, suspension, engine shift, brake feel, engine sound, and PTM. We're gonna go full everything but PTM dialed one click back. Oh, that is so much power for a naturally aspirated engine. I said the same thing last time I drove this car. Quick steering ratio, but not much steering weight from this EPS steering rack. Lots of brake pressure required to get this car slowed down. But the owner Jackson mentioned that the brakes just haven't been burnished in yet, just like last time I drove it. Engine, a flat plane crank, high-pitched, screaming V8, really good cornering feel. We'll go first gear. That acceleration, again, for a naturally aspirated engine, in a car weighing over 3,600 pounds. That is so impressive. I do wish this car had better steering feel though. I just can't really quite tell what the front end is doing. The steering's very precise, but not much feedback coming through. The suspension though, Gen 4 Magnaride dampers, they're just so good. Compliance over bumps, lots of control in the high-speed corners. You downshift in this car just to downshift. And it's made easier by this ultra-quick 8-speed dual clutch. Oh yes. now. Even in the stiffest suspension mode, these MagneRide dampers combined with these stiffer springs of the Z07 package, they feel perfectly fine on this very bumpy road. Now with the exhaust valve fully open, there is a little bit of drone in the lower RPMs. A worthy trade-off for that absolutely insane high-pitched shriek as you near the 8,600 RPM rev limiter. Now this car does feel really big and wide, however. On a road like this, I have to place it very carefully. Wow, love that immediate throttle response. 3,600 pounds is a lot of weight, but the car handles it really well, even in these tighter corners. The chassis tuning on this car is phenomenal. I am speechless. Wow. The experience of driving this car is, I will admit, largely dominated by that engine. But the rest of the car, the chassis, the suspension, the brakes, the gearbox, all of it works together very, very well. Again, my only complaint with the driving dynamics is the steering. I wish it had more feedback, and I don't think it needs to be this quick. It almost feels hypersensitive. Wow. For under $200,000, this Z06 with Z07 package is hard to argue with. If it were me and I didn't plan to track this car all that much, I'd forego the Z07 package and just enjoy this phenomenal suspension and engine and gearbox and mid-engine balance for significantly less money. You can pick one of these up probably closer to $130 or $140 with still a decent, reasonable spec. Now it's time to hop into the Ferrari 458 from well over a decade ago and see if Ferrari still did it better. All right, we're now in the 2010 Ferrari 458 Italia, one of my favorite cars of all time. It might not be the most rare or expensive Ferrari out there, but the driving dynamics of this car are truly sensational. But how does it stack up against the C8 Z06? That's the question. So this car is powered by a 4.5 liter naturally aspirated flat plane crank V8, making 562 horsepower and 398 pound-feet of torque. It revs even higher than that Z06 to 9,000 RPM, so 400 RPMs higher, obviously over 100 horsepower down and over 60 foot-pounds down. But this car is also much lighter at just over 3,300 pounds. It should be approximately 300 pounds lighter than the Z06. Hydraulic power steering rack, 7-speed dual clutch transmission, and this car has the second generation MagneRide dampers with a bumpy road mode, which I found last time is extremely useful on this road. We've got front double wishbone suspension, rear multi-link, and we also have an eLSD as standard. Like I said, market value in the $160,000 to $200,000 range, right in line with that Z06. Obviously with this car, you likely won't be getting a warranty. The reliability won't be that of a brand new Chevrolet, and the maintenance costs, I mean, you already know where I'm going with this, but at face value, taking all those things out of the equation for a moment, which car is better to drive? First impressions of the interior, so much more airy and spacious in here, even though this is a significantly smaller car than the Z06. The visibility is so much better, and because we don't have that row of buttons, I just feel a lot more comfortable here. Manually adjustable seats, these are fantastic, very comfortable, hold me in place very well. Love the steering wheel, big engine start button, and we have the Manatino to select our different drive modes. Column mounted carbon fiber paddle shifters. So we have a vehicle dynamics digital display on the left. We're going to put this car right into race mode, but we're going to turn on the bumpy road mode for the dampers. Into first gear, and away we go. driving around somewhat serenely with the bumpy road mode on, this car's actually really comfortable. Does it ride as well as the C8 Z06? Perhaps not, but it's not too far off. For a car that's 15 years older, that's really, really impressive. All right, let's start pushing it a little bit here. Very first thing I'm noticing is this steering. It feels potentially even quicker than the steering rack in the Z06, and it's even lighter. Wow. This 7-speed dual clutch, it's so amazing. It's really quick, but it's not particularly smooth. It lets you know every time you're changing gears. Woo. The acceleration doesn't feel far off from the Z06 either. Because this car is 300 pounds lighter, it doesn't need as much power. Notice a lack of mid-range torque. That Z06 with a 1 liter larger displacement engine does feel a little bit more usable in the middle of the rev range. The other thing I really am noticing about this car versus the Z06 is again due to the 300 pound lighter curb weight, but I'm not talking about acceleration, I'm talking about nimbleness. The handling of this car feels more lively, up on its tippy toes. Let's do a straight line pull here. Wow. 9,000 RPM red line, just incredible. While we're stopped here, I forgot to mention this car isn't completely stock either. This also has aftermarket wheels, but in the form of JDM Volk TE37s, 20 inches front and rear, and were lowered on some Novatec lowering springs, but again, stock Magnaride dampers. And honestly, I can't tell that this car has aftermarket springs because the compliance, the ride quality with the bumpy road mode on is so good, not far off from the C8 Z06. There is more road noise in this car. That's to be expected given its age and the fact that it's 300 pounds lighter. But still, for a car of this age, it's very impressive. All right. So lively, it's just up on its tippy toes. Now these brakes, similar to that Z06, also require a lot of pedal pressure and pedal travel to get the car slowed down. This car is more exciting to drive than the Z06. It is just more communicative. The chassis talks more. And you just get these little bits of slip angle at partial throttle coming out of corners, and it makes this car really get my heart pumping in a way that the Z06, it also gets my heart pumping, but mostly because of the engine. The 458 is more exciting in more areas of its driving dynamics. The steering still is a weakness in this car. It's too light, doesn't have much feedback, not terrible by any means, but like the steering in the Z06, it is not the highlight of this car. The reason I love this transmission is because it doesn't try to mask the slight dip in torque between shifts, especially on the upshift. It lets you feel it. It's a little bit more violent. The Z06, you barely feel the shifts at all. It's a little bit closer to a PDK. what's there not to love? Oh my goodness. They're so similar and so different at the same time. The engines truly do share a lot of character, and in some ways, yes, the engine in the Z06 is more impressive. I think the specific output is just a tad lower, 122 horsepower per liter versus 125 per liter for the 458, but that is slightly more accelerative overall, despite the extra weight. In terms of engine character though, this 458 just has a smoothness to it. Like, it's not trying too hard to sound aggressive. At lower RPMs, it actually doesn't sound like anything too special. But watch this. Let's get to 9,000 RPM. Oh. Just that shriek at the top end, it's piercing. It's absolutely amazing. Oh my goodness. All right, conclusion time. For the same money, which car would I have? Well, I'll be completely honest. If it's me, with my own money, with my own sensibilities, I would choose the Z06 because it's the newer car, it has the warranty, it's gonna be more reliable and cheaper to maintain. But from a pure driving dynamic standpoint, the 458 is still a step above. A lot of it comes down to the 300-pound lighter curb weight, which makes this car feel more lively, more up on its tippy toes, more exciting, even taking the engine out of the equation. Because I have a hard time picking the engine that I prefer between these two cars. They're both just so good. But also there's some of the more intangible aspects of the 458 that I prefer. I prefer the exterior styling, it's more timeless. I prefer the interior, more spacious, better seating position, better visibility. But end of the day, you can't go wrong with either of these two cars. In a perfect world, I would have these two cars parked next to each other in my garage. So big shout out to Jackson and to Danny, the owners of these amazing high revving flat plane crank V8 supercars. Let me know how you think these two cars compare for the same money, $150,000 to $200,000 range. Which would you have and why? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.